All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're breaking down Allan and Barbara Pease's mega bestseller, a book that's as popular as it is controversial. It claims to be the ultimate guide to understanding the opposite sex, and in this explainer, we're going to unpack its core arguments piece by piece. So the book opens with a scene that, well, it might just sound a little familiar. You've got a family in a car, the husband, Bob, is driving, and he's getting more and more stressed because his wife and daughters are all talking at once. Finally, he snaps, telling them to be quiet so he can concentrate. And they're just confused, right? What does their conversation have to do with his driving? This one little moment is the perfect setup for the book's entire argument. And that argument all boils down to this one central idea. Men and women are different. It's not about who's better or who's worse, just fundamentally different. The authors argue this isn't mostly about how we were raised, but about biology, how we're literally wired.
Now, the authors really take aim at that classic nurture theory, the idea that was super popular for a long time, that a baby's mind is a clean slate and society just writes on it. They say, nope, not so fast. They argue that modern science, stuff like brain scans and hormone research, shows that nature, our biological blueprint, plays a much, much bigger role in who we become than we ever gave it credit for.
So, if it's all about our biological blueprint, where did that blueprint come from? Well, according to the book, you have to rewind. Way back, all the way back to our ancient evolutionary roles. This is the bedrock of their entire theory. Man the hunter and woman the nest defender.
Think of it like this. For millions of years, there were two very different job descriptions. A man's job was to chase down lunch and protect the tribe. So his brain evolved to be great at long-distance navigation and focusing on a single target. A woman's job was to raise kids and defend the home base, the nest. So her brain got wired for monitoring everything nearby, picking up on tiny changes and, you guessed it, juggling a whole bunch of tasks at the same time.
And these two totally different evolutionary tracks, the book says, led to two totally different ways of experiencing reality. We're not just talking about opinions or feelings here. We're talking about what our senses are literally built to do.
Come on, we've all lived this exact moment, right? The famous "where's the butter" argument. The authors use this super relatable scenario to introduce one of the biggest physical differences they claim exists, how men and women literally see the world. So here's the explanation from the book. The hunter needed what they call tunnel vision, like looking through binoculars, to lock onto a target far away and not get distracted. The nest defender, on the other hand, needed wide peripheral vision, a huge arc to spot any danger sneaking up on the nest. The modern-day result? He can't find the butter that's right there, and she can see everything in the fridge without even turning her head. This whole idea of specialized focus brings us to another huge point in the book, how our brains handle tasks. And the claim is pretty direct. A man's brain is built for single tasking, while a woman's brain is configured for multitasking. And they say they've got the biological proof to back it up. The authors point to research that says the corpus callosum, that's the big bundle of nerves connecting the left and right sides of the brain, is thicker in women. How much thicker? Up to 30% more connecting fibers than in men. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, according to the book, all those extra connections are like having a faster internet connection between the logical left brain and the creative right brain. This constant chatter between hemispheres is what enables multitasking. And it's also, they argue, the biological basis for what we call women's intuition, that ability to process a ton of different verbal and nonverbal cues all at once to make a snap judgment. All right, let's try a quick test from the book. Have a look at this unfolded cube on the screen. Now, in your head, try to fold it up. Which one of those options, A, B, C, or D, is what the final cube would look like? This is a classic test of what's called spatial ability. Did you get it? The answer is A. Now, here's the kicker. The authors claim that overwhelmingly, men score much higher on these kinds of tests. And they say it's because the male brain has a dedicated area in the right hemisphere that evolved specifically for things like judging speed, distance, and angles. All the skills you need to hit a moving target with a spear and find your way home again. So we've got different brains, different senses. It's probably no surprise that the book's next big topic is where all this causes the most problems: communication. This, they argue, is where the wires get crossed most often. This blue or gold shoe story is just a perfect example. A man hears a problem and gives a solution. Gold. Problem solved. But the authors argue that the woman wasn't really asking for a solution at all.
She's probably already decided and is just using the question to start a conversation, to connect, to get confirmation. It's a total misfire.
And look at this data the book presents. It's not just how we talk, but how much. A man might use, 7,000 communication units a day, words, sounds, signals? A woman, she can use up to 20,000. The book's point is that for men, talk is mostly for reporting facts. For women, it's a way to build relationships and, this is crucial, to de-stress by talking through the day's problems.
Here we go again. This is another one of those scenarios the book uses that'll probably make you nod your head. He hears the question literally. Do I want coffee? No. End of conversation. He completely misses the real message, which is that she wants coffee and is inviting him to join her.
And this gets to a key idea they call indirect speech. The theory is that women often use it to keep things harmonious, to build the connection. It's a way of asking that avoids a direct command. But men, who the book says are wired for direct literal language, can completely miss the point, which just leads to frustration for everyone.
Okay, so after laying out all of these supposed differences in our eyes, our brains, our words, what's the big takeaway? Where are we supposed to go with all this information?
The book's diagnosis is pretty simple, really. They say that relationships so often fail not because of bad intentions, but because of a basic misunderstanding. We're all judging our partners by our own instruction manual, expecting them to see the world and communicate in it the same way we do.
And the authors are really clear about this point. They make a sharp distinction between equality and difference. They say, look, fighting for equality of opportunity is a vital social goal, but accepting that there are innate biological differences is a scientific reality. The two things, they argue, aren't in conflict. And that leads to their three-step solution for getting along better. Step 1, acknowledge that the differences are real. Step 2, understand why they're there, the evolutionary backstory. And step 3, adapt. Stop fighting your hardwiring and instead learn to speak the other person's language. In the end, the book makes a powerful case for biology being a kind of blueprint for our behavior. And it leaves us with a really provocative question to think about. In a world that is rightly fighting for equality, how do we deal with this idea of a biological blueprint? How much of it do we accept, and how much of it should we challenge? That's the debate this book sparked, and it's a conversation that is very much still alive today.